Michael. Evening, members. Let's make a start. It's gone 4:30. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Finance and Assets Committee of East Cambridgeshire District Council. Those in the room and those watching on YouTube. Hopefully you will enjoy the meeting. If for any reason the live stream does go down, we will pause the meeting and try and I'll just pause for one moment. Yeah. The traffic in Ely. I'd only just started the introduction anyway. But as I was saying, we will pause the meeting if there is an interruption to the live stream and try to connect the service. So moving on then, first item on the agenda is public question time. I know we have got one question. The name's not easy. Sorry?
It's on the end, isn't it?
No. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had one question. It's from Cameron Martin, who is here in the public seating.
Okay, if you want to come up to the mics and say your question, press the button.
Thank you. Hopefully this is coming through. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the time on this one. I'll keep it short and as concise as I can. I'm here today as representative of Stuntney community. Question within the email that I've alluded to is with regards to the status of the cycle path going from Stuntney to Ely. We have reason to believe and had some healthy discussions within the village hall back in October with a packed out hall inquiring to the status of the historic plans and, more importantly, the funding associated with this potential route. Specifically, I would like to ask the chair whether they'd be and the committee as a whole would be willing to agree to undertaking or preparing a paper for the next financial assets meeting in January, in which we'd like to establish a summary of the status of Stuntney to Ely cycle path, including reference associated with any historic plans, any studies, but more specifically status of the SIL spending list and how that may be applicable or used within this scheme. Also within that, a realistic set of potential funding pots, if outside of the SIL. Any update from the council in terms of delivery plan on that path. We're aware of historic plans that have fallen to the wayside, but want to get an update on that. And also any recommendations that the proposal and how we as a community can help progress that within timescales in the next year or so. There's more context to the email, but as a whole, that's the questions that I would like to pose to the group.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I will answer it in a certain way, and then you can come back and have a supplementary. The council has long championed to improve the East Cambridgeshire strategic cycle and footpath network and adopted an East Cambridgeshire cycling and walking route strategy in November 2021. We did actually set up a bus cycling and walking working group back in, I think it was 2021. And I've chaired that group since the inception. So we're very keen, and it was a cross-member group. So we're very keen to get as much as we can into fruition. Following and then going back to what I was going to say, following the work on the network, the council commissioned Sustrans to produce feasibility studies to give a better understanding of the factors that need to be considered to deliver the cycle routes and an estimate of the cost. And we did, I think Sustrans did work on about 5 or 6 schemes for us that were certainly discussed with parish councils and with town council. And the studies did explore the Ely to Soham route, including options via Stuntney. I think there were about 5 or 6 routes that we looked at for that particular route. The actual study can be viewed on the cycling and walking page of the council's website. And it is one of the cycling routes identified in Cambridgeshire's local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which is produced by the county council. I certainly have raised that as a county councillor at the Highways and Transport Committee. How do we get some of our schemes into the next version of the what they call the LC WIP, which is this local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. And I am pushing to try and see as much if we can get as many of our schemes in there as possible. Obviously, as you've identified, there's a community priority in the Stuntney Vision section of the East Cambridgeshire local plan, and Wycombe Soham Ely cycle path is identified in the council's community infrastructure levy infrastructure list. Currently, officers are working with the combined authority from Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and the county council cycling team to secure funding for further development of this route study. It's at a relatively early stage, but more information will be shared with members and the public when it is available. So I think probably January is going to be too early for getting a paper, but it is something we want to keep on the radar and push forward as much as we can. What we've done with the schemes that we got Sustrans to do is we've got literally, I call them oven ready schemes to a certain extent, that when funding, because funding does come out from time to time from government, we've got schemes ready that we could then push forward. Obviously then the difficult decision we've got to make is which schemes we push forward, but certainly Ely to Stuntney to Ely is certainly one of those schemes, and then broaden it onto Soham, the Ely to Soham corridor, for want of a better word. It is certainly something we want to push forward. Hopefully that helps answer the question, but happy to take a
Sure. No, appreciate the context and updates on that one. We're quite familiar with the back history on this one as a community, documented studies that you've mentioned there. That was the presentation that we had within the Stuntney community. I guess really from our perspective, with Benjard now being in place, with festivals coming in and out of that venue, the community as a whole, the increased population as that's growing with developments, there's an increased level of, if you want, necessity to have a safe and a standardised route in from Ely. The majority of the cut through from Ely to the likes of Benjard and the wider community is within a kind of 20-mile-an-hour speed zone. It's effectively almost a 500 yards piece of pavement that is ultimately the main focus area. So we recognise that there is still work to be done on that. We know and recognise the plans that have already been drawn up as not detailed designs, but plans nonetheless. We're keen to see that progress. We're also linked in with the local landowners as well. We're aware that the plans that have been in place are Plan A. We have suggestions for Plan B as well that may well be a more cost-effective solution that should, I believe, be considered as well. Just keen to see this one not fall by the wayside. We recognise that the efforts made from a cycle route from Ely to the allotments was done. We just want to see that carried through for the remainder of the route from Ely to Stuntney. But yeah, I'd be grateful for any update on that in the coming months.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to keep updates with members and discussing this with members, how we can push this forward, because it certainly is something I think we all feel is needed. But thank you for your time, and thank you for coming to ask the question.
Appreciate it. I won't take the mic up anymore. Thank you.
And just to say, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. And obviously, if you feel the need, I know you've got young children from the email I saw earlier today. So feel free to stay as long as you want to. Apologies and substitutions. Jane, sure.
I'm not, sorry. Thank you, Chair. Just note there are no apologies, but Councillor Christine Ambrose Smith has been re-added as a substitute to the committee.
Thank you, Jane. No, item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from members? No. In which case we move on to item 4 with the minutes. I've got there's one alteration which has been picked up by the minutes by Councillor Goodall, actually, because if you look at those who were present, he's got Councillor Hunt down as being present. He was actually not at the meeting, and Councillor Goodall substituted for him, as is mentioned on top of page 6. So that I will sign later on. I will sign an updated version of the minutes.
You've already got it updated. I've already done it.
Okay, fine. That's the only item I've got. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. I've got a question about the accuracy of minute 31, Economic Development Funding Update. The resolution is members resolve to approve, and there's one item, one resolution, but it's got a 1 and a 2 by the side of it, as if there were 2 resolutions. I'm wondering whether the 2 should be omitted or whether there was a second resolution that has been left off.
I'll double check that, but I would think the 2 shouldn't be there, but I will double check.
I think if it's anything other than the 2 shouldn't be in there, we'll circulate to members. But we'll take it at the moment that it is the 2. I can't remember off the top of my head whether that's correct. But thank you for pointing that out. With those adjustments, are members happy to approve that I sign the minutes later on? Yeah, I'm seeing that nods. Okay. In which case we move, item 5 is chair's announcements. I don't have any announcements apart from that Nigel Ankers will be with us for the exempt item later. Item 6 is the service delivery plans, the 6-month performance update. And I'll hand over to Sally Bonnet to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The appendices to the report contain the 6-month updates for the 10 service areas that report to this committee as listed in paragraph 3.1. These provide an update on the service delivery plans approved by this committee in March of this year. A narrative has been provided for each performance measure and a new RAG type status has been included. Members are requested to note the updates.
Members, this is obviously the 6 months half-year report. Any comments, questions? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. I've got, I think, 5 questions. The first one is on page 19 of the agenda. The bottom of the page talks about paper usage in democratic services and says that paper usage has increased by 20.03% rather than seeing a reduction of 10%. Wondering whether we knew what has caused that very significant increase and also what the plan is in slightly more detail. It says democratic services will seek to reduce this figure in the following 6 months, but doesn't really say how. Shall I go through all of them, or do you want them one by one?
I would have to look into why it's gone up. We get figures from the reprographics room to for the yearly amount of paper that's been used. I don't know why it's gone up. I'd have to ask them why it's gone up. It's just the amount of printing that's gone on for it's in our team for committees and stuff. So I would need to look into that. Our way of trying to reduce paper is to reduce the amount of paper that comes to committees. And that's something we plan on working on next year.
Thank you.
Second question is at the top of page 27, and it's about development of members of the financial services team. The half-year update is that all staff are provided with on-the-job and external training in line with their job role on a need-to-have basis. That sounded a bit mean frankly. I mean, I think one approach that a lot of organisations have, certainly the better ones, is to develop their staff so that they are fit to move on into other roles, either within the organisation or to leave the organisation and someone to take their place. Simply to say you can only have training if you need it, rather than in a spirit of developing people, seems rather odd wording, and I wondered why it was so narrowly defined. It's my second question.
I mean, it's probably more in my wording as opposed to your interpretation. And I apologise if it does sound more narrow than it probably is. I mean, we've very recently had a new apprentice in the finance team, so we are obviously keen to train and bring people up into the team for continuity planning, career planning, and the like. So we are doing what we can to, you know, to train our staff. And if the narrative in this report is slightly more narrow than the reality, I apologise for that.
Thanks very much. I mean, I'm sure at some point we will review various policies, HR policies, training policies, whatever, and that may be something we might want to return to, but thank you very much indeed, Ian. My third question is about the workload in street naming and numbering requests. So that's, I'm sorry,
page is that, sorry?
page 34.
34.
34. And wondering whether that was a temporary blip. Presumably it's to do with the levels of growth in the area, which I think are considerable, because that must, I would have thought, be one of the key drivers of that type of work. What are we doing about that if we are falling so behind on street naming and numbering? Please.
I'll speak to the service lead and get a response to that question, all those questions.
Sorry, actually, I've only got 4 questions. I think question 4 was the local nature recovery strategy. I'm sorry, page again, 51. My understanding of the LNRS timetable was that that was being pulled together by the combined authority rather than by the county council. And it was the combined authorities relevant director who was going to be pulling together that timetable. I'm not sure whether she has or not yet.
Is that the bottom bullet? Or
That's the play an active part
Play
in
an active part, yeah,
influencing the
okay,
emerging local nature recovery strategy.
okay, can we can go away and check that? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I've got Councillor Trapp next. And then I've got Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I have a number of questions as well. So shall I take them one by one? Page 19, encourage greater usage of electronic means. It just says percentage of electronic communication via electronic means. Should there be a number in front of that? I mean, just the target and the update don't seem to correspond to each other either.
Which one are you referring to?
So the middle one,
The middle
on
one.
page 19. I think that's what? Right, and then
Okay.
and
you'll
the other
check
one
that,
I
Jane.
was really concerned about, staff with email. I just thought would be 100% with email. Is that the reason for the paper increase going up?
No, it'd be bin men and people like that that don't have email.
But staff, I would
Yes.
staff here.
Yes.
All right, okay.
With grounds teams and people like that who are out on, yeah.
I think it's a question of wording. Thank you. Page 28, publish annual quality monitoring report. The target was met, it wasn't exceeded. The target was to publish by a certain date, and it was achieved. There's quite a few other ones there, which is target exceeded, where it actually means target actually has been met.
Okay, that's, yeah.
And the other one is on page 33, which is also target exceeded. Bottom, priority 1, 2, 3. 90% seems to comprise all of those possible priorities. I'm not sure, should they be broken down? How many were resolution target was 4 hours, 4 hours plus 1 day? Perhaps one should be saying how many of these fell into each category.
Yeah, I mean, if we've got that information, then yes, we can share that with members. Yeah. And there may be, as you say, different targets. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Obviously, I don't want to create another extra workload for staff, but
No,
if
but
they've got that information, then yeah, I'm happy.
But that
to share it.
information must be recorded if they could get the actual target.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Trapp. I've got Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so there's more information that sits behind these, isn't there? But we obviously slimmed them down because we had out masses and masses of stuff coming and we wanted a slimmed down version. So it's, I guess, rock and a hard place with what you include and what you don't. I just wanted to make a comment on the local nature recovery strategy because I happen to know a little bit about it. I mean, you know, it says the target
Which page is that? Sorry.
Sorry, page 51 that Councillor Dupre alluded to earlier. So it says that the local nature recovery strategy for Cambridgeshire is target off track. It's not actually in our gift. It is being developed by Cambridgeshire County Council on behalf of the combined authority that's commissioned the County Council to do it. It was due to be signed, sealed and delivered in 2024 and unfortunately that's not going to happen. I was assured at the Combined Authority Board meeting in October that it would be signed, sealed and delivered in 2025, but I understand from yesterday that that's now may slip as well. So it's not something that's in the immediate gift of this organisation, although we have tried very hard to be supportive and helpful and tried to encourage it to move forward at pace, but there's been a lot of difficulty with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I'm seeing no other hands. And I think, as Councillor Bailey's mentioned, and I'm sure all members will know that there is a lot of detail behind, Councillor Whelan, but I'll just finish off what I was saying. There's a lot of detail behind these. So if you want more detail, then please go direct to the officers involved. I'm sure they'll give you a lot more information than is on what we've got in front of us. But Councillor Whelan, Alison Whelan, sorry.
Yeah, on that basis, you know, I don't doubt that there is a lot more information, but we're looking, and particularly looking at something like on page 34, where it says notifications to Royal Mail to be made within 5 working days. It would be very easy to have behind that the actual data which shows how many days it is taking on average to achieve this, what is the spread of days that it's taking to achieve that, and things like this. And I would expect that to be there. It'd be really handy to actually have that. So where things are off of track, it would be quite useful to have that information presented. You know, arguably it's not needed at all where anything is on track, but certainly where it's off track, it would be useful to have that presented as part of the report, not just for our purposes. And I appreciate we can go back to the officers to get a bit more information, but actually I think it's quite it's quite useful to the public to understand, because, you know, when we say that this is 5 working days, is it because everything was actually achieved within 6 or 60? You know, that's what we don't understand. So it'd be useful to have that.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I'm seeing no other hands. So in which case we're being asked to note these plans. So we've duly noted them, and obviously the comments that have been made, that there'll be some information coming out to members in respect of those. So we move on to item 6, which is the economic item 7, sorry, the economic development funding update. And we've got Kieran Carr with us to introduce the paper. Thank you, Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. The report presented to members outlines a request for the committee to consider the allocation of just under 870,000 of Littleport Market Town funds towards the delivery of a new community building. The building's part of the Phase 2 housing development in Littleport at land north of Grange Lane and east of the A10 and is incorporated in the local plan. As discussed at the September committee, the funds had previously been allocated to extending East Base North. This project has now been cancelled and that has been confirmed with the combined authority. The decision to cancel the project was taken due to a number of planning concerns, as well as the cost of the extension against the proposed budget. A proposal regarding reallocating the funding has been discussed with the combined authority, and a final decision on funding would likely be made early in the new year. The new building will cost in the region of 2.2 million. The additional funds alongside the Market Town funding being made up of Section 106 and a contribution from Littleport Sill funding pot. The new building will offer a flexible space that could accommodate a range of facilities and activities. This will include office space for short-term hire, desk space for hire for home workers, a meeting and training venue, as well as a facility for providing outreach services in the town for the local community. A number of letters of intent to hire the facility have already been received, which includes the local GP surgery to run outreach clinics, as well as Cambridgeshire Skills to provide skills and employability sessions for local residents. The building will be owned and managed by Littleport Town Council, and it's anticipated with its additional business focus, the new facility will complement the role of the East Base Business Centre in supporting growing the local economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kieran. We've been asked to approve the allocation. Do I have a proposer for that, Councillor Miller? And I'm happy to second it from the chair. Before I go on to the proposer, are there any questions of the officer on this? Oh, sorry, I missed you there. So, Councillor du Preez.
Sorry, easily missed. I'm slightly surprised that we are looking at allocating well over £750,000 to this project on the basis of a side and a half of A4. There's no background papers, background documents, none, appendices, none. We haven't had here a document explaining the business case, how the funding stacks up, what any of the background to this at all. It's a very large sum of money to be asked to agree to in a paper with absolutely no background at all supplied to it. And that surprises me. I'm not saying that I disagree in principle with the project, but I do feel very uneasy about the lack of information that this committee has in order to reach its decision. This looks as if it's a joint decision in that it also has to be approved by the Combined Authority Investment Board. So our approval is only part of the picture, but I still think that we deserve as members rather more information than this, given the size of the grant that's being proposed to be switched from something else and put into this.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Alison Whelan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was actually just looking at page 54. So the top of page 54, it says additional funding is being provided by Section 106 agreement of the Town Council Sill Meaningful Proportion Income. I can't see anywhere in the paperwork how much that is that we're talking about for those items. So it does make it very difficult to understand exactly what the project actually is. The other thing that I can't see, and it could just be that I can't see it in here, is who's going to be operating this premises?
Those, Kieran.
Yeah, in terms of background papers, we have got a full concept paper. We're also working on a full business case to be presented to the Combined Authority. We can obviously make that information available to members, and that details the breakdown of the funding in terms of the Section 106 and the SIL money. Section 106 at the moment, it's index linked. It currently stands at just over £1 million. And the SIL funding, which Littleport have agreed to fund, is about £250,000. The building will be run by Littleport Town Council. They are suggesting to relocate staff from the barn in Littleport to the new building if the project goes ahead. Within the business case and the conversations we've been having with the Combined Authority, with the Section 106 agreement, there will be a requirement to put a community building on the site. What we've discussed with the Market Town funding, with the cancellation of the eSpace project, is firstly the proposed outputs and outcomes that were linked to that we wouldn't be able to deliver obviously with the project being cancelled, and we're hoping or we're confident that those will be delivered with the new community building, because it will have more of a business focus. And I think with the Market Town funding as well, what we've also discussed with the Combined Authority is what it's going to allow us to do is put that enhancement onto the building, rather than basically having just a community space where people will meet for events and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, Councillor Goldsack.
I have to say, whilst I am 100% in favour of this, I do have some sympathy from what I've heard from across the floor. I think you've just alluded to some wonderful information and documentation that really could and should have been available to members to read. That's not going to change my support of the project, because I think it's a very good project. It's exactly what the Market Town Fund was there to do in the first place. But I do have some sympathy that there could have and should have been more information shared on this. And I think that's something that we can learn moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I've got Sally Bonnet wants to make a comment on that.
Has been an issue with timing as well, getting our papers ready and aligning that with the Combined Authority. But rest assured that Kieran and his team have reviewed the concept paper. We are confident with this project going forward. We are working closely with the Littleport Town Council to produce that business plan. But if there are any issues or concerns that we have, then we would obviously bring that back to members. And as Councillor Dupre alluded to, it will go through the CPCA, Combined Authority, assurance process as well. So yeah, it's also an issue of timing as well as to why we didn't have the information.
Thank you. I've got. We're still on questions here at the moment. I've got Councillor Trapp.
I am still on questions.
Okay, fine. And then I've got Councillor Bailey.
What other community buildings are there in Littleport? I mean, it seems that one's providing almost like a village hall, town hall. I mean, are there other meeting places in Littleport?
Yeah, as part of the phase 1 development, there was a youth community building that's been developed. There is one other community meeting venue, but I think the point I made earlier was what this money is going to do is provide something that's just more than a meeting venue, which is this business focus around allowing small businesses to hire temporary office space there for hot desking facilities, to also have a facility that Cambridgeshire Skills can use to run a number of programmes. And it also will provide space for outreach clinics for the GP surgery. And they're anticipating a footfall of about 2,000 people a month for the various clinics this will run. And there are no other really suitable facilities in Littleport for that in particular.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kieran. I'm seeing other hands, so, oh, sorry, we're still on questions, yes, councillor Dupre.
And I am still on questions. I'm sorry, my hand was up. I don't know. I seem to have donned my invisibility cloak this afternoon for some reason. Yeah, I mean, all that sounds fabulous, but I've got absolutely no assurance here of all of that. And I'm in a bit of a quandary as to what to do. I don't really, I have no wish to vote against this, but I feel uncomfortable voting for something wonderful, as I'm sure it will be, on the basis of a page and a half of paper with no background documents in the sum of £867,822. Is there any way, Chair, that we can give ourselves some assurance on this before committing this kind of money to it, albeit that it is money that is passing through this council, as so much money does?
Well, I think we've had the assurance from Sally Bonnet. When you say assurance, are you thinking of wanting to delay the decision on this, which obviously is going to not help the project?
I really don't want to be in this position, because I understand that there is also a matter for CPCA Investment Board and all of that, that there are contingent decisions by other bodies. And I don't want to be the Grinch that stole Christmas from this scheme. I really don't. But equally, I don't want to put my hand up really to say, yes, I'm supporting spending between £750,000 and £1 million on something, when there's a page and a half of paper, no evidence at all on paper. I mean, it may well be that there's huge demand for this. It may well be that it's going to be really successful and well repay the investment in this. But nobody's given me any evidence on that, and that is my worry. I mean, I do think there's a learning point for the future. This has happened before. But we have to get a grip when we're spending large amounts of money. And we have to have a reasonable amount of documentation, even if it's just a link to other background papers. But to have background documents, none, that can't be the case. And I'm just wondering whether I'm just going to have to be forced to abstain on something that, with evidence, I would love to support, simply because nobody has given us the information on which to make an informed decision as custodians of public money. And I'm casting around to ask whether there's a solution to that.
I take the point about the papers are not huge. Obviously, I'm keen that we don't delay this project because obviously it's one that's needed, and I believe there is a time limit on this as well, which is part of the issue. Why I certainly don't want to delay it. But I think it's a learning curve here that we need. Yeah. In future, we need more detail than we're getting. You're still on questions, yes? Or, no, I'll go to. He's been waiting very patiently. I know we haven't. Yeah, I know the proposer intimated he wanted to say a few words on the issue, so I'll go to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that there has been and continues to be a great deal of development of residential property in Littleport. Nevertheless, members will also be aware that Littleport has more than its fair share of deprivation. And it seems to me that the community centre described will be far more beneficial to all residents than the village hall that was originally conceived of back in 2017 ever could have been. So I gather from the Littleport Town Council clerk and also from Kieran that the hub to which Karen referred is already oversubscribed, and the demand for the new centre's potential is already making itself known. I'd also add that the hub is of a very different sort of construction from what I gather the new community centre will be, and so even if the hub weren't already oversubscribed, then you couldn't put that to the same purposes to which the community hub would be put, and vice versa. I'd add that the purposes for for which the likes of the Market Towns Fund may be used as tightly constrained, and as I think Anna mentioned, there's also some tight time limits on it as well. So this strikes me as an excellent use of that fund. To address Councillor du Preez's concerns, Little Port Town Council has a solid track record of delivering projects in the past, the hub being one of which. So I'm confident in their capacity to deliver that. That all said, I do agree with Councillors du Preez and Goldsack, and indeed Sharp, that it would have been preferable to have more supporting documentation. But I also have to underscore what Sally said about the timing, which was somewhat complicated given the unexpected source of the funds. And of course, I'm referring to the cancellation of the Space North project. In any event, I am delighted, therefore, to propose this motion for what is a much needed community asset for Little Port.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I think we're now into debate, but so I know Councillor Bailey's
So
indicated.
really, I just wanted to make it clear that actually this is CPCA funds. It's not funds belonging to the district council, and maybe there's something not quite as tight as it might have been in terms of the wording of the recommendation, because actually we don't have the sole right to allocate this money. What we're asking for is for CPCA. We're giving our blessing to the idea of delivering this new community centre, and we're seeking the CPCA's agreement to use 867,822 of the Little Port Market Town Fund, which is their money, not ours, to put towards it. And they have a process at the CPCA, a very tight process, where the decision has to go through a lot of scrutiny and through the investment board, etc. So I have no hesitation in supporting what is being asked here, because I'm very keen that this money gets delivered and used for the benefit of Little Port. Little Port's taken a huge amount of growth. It does have issues that need addressing, and it does need community spaces. So I am certainly not going to get in the way of what I know will be a tight process to ensure that everything stacks up when it goes to the investment, through the investment process at the CPCA. And I think it would be good to send a united message from this organisation that this is what we want to be able to deliver to Little Port, and this is how we want to use the Market Town Fund. And I think it'd be hugely regrettable if not everybody supported it. And I don't know if there were any requests to officers for further background information. And it's the sort of thing that, if people aren't content with the information that they've got, they have a spokes meeting on offer with officers. It is possible to ask for additional information prior to today and not leave it to today. But I agreed, though, that, it would have been helpful to have more information. And I think officers have acknowledged that for whatever reason, it hasn't been possible to get it in terms of being published, but that doesn't mean that there is not work available that is heading its way, subject to this committee, towards the CPCA. And I really don't want us getting in the way of that. It would be hugely regrettable.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Trapp, then Councillor Wade.
Thank you very much. Actually, I was going to make the same point as Councillor Bailey, that it really isn't our money, I suppose, and it has. But I was wondering, the real money is the S106 is the biggest one. I mean, presumably that is automatic. Can that be signed? That is something we sign off, and presumably that is it's over 1 million, which seems quite a lot that we can sign off straight away for this kind of venture. Just checking on that.
Section 106 would have been agreed as part of the planning arrangements and planning permission.
So I think they just draw that down from, yeah.
And
I've got-
I'm delighted that Littleport Town Council has put in some money into it. That's very nice to have that partnership.
Okay, thanks you, councillor Trapp. I've got councillor Wade, then councillor Dupre indicated.
Yeah, so I think absolutely, you know, agree and support the sentiment of the project, and it sounds absolutely brilliant. I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that we are standing in the way of something. If it has been put on an agenda for us in this committee to spend time on, then presumably there is a purpose for that process to be in place. And I think it's reasonable for somebody, when they're being asked to state their opinion publicly on something, that there is a certain level of information. And I don't think that's fair to say we're standing in the way of something. I think the lack of information is standing in the way of us being able to make an informed decision. And if it really doesn't, if it's just a matter of, it really doesn't matter what we say here, then let's not have it on the agenda. I don't understand, the two don't make sense to me. If we need to have a say on it, we need to have an informed say. If we don't need to have a say, let's not bother, let's not have it on the agenda, let's not talk about it. So I feel I'm being put in quite in a comfortable position, 100% support, but I do feel they have a professional responsibility to make a decision based on evidence rather than assurance.
I've got councillor Dupre next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to be positive here and come up with a potential solution to this, because I think it is acknowledged that this is a rather skimpy basis on which to be asked to spend this money. And even if it is not our money, we are being asked to approve that it be spent in this way, and it is public money, and we need to be responsible with public money. I was wondering whether we could make an amendment to the recommendation which would acknowledge the role of the Combined Authorities Investment Board and the processes that it goes through, by amending the recommendation to say that we are requested to recommend to CPCA Investment Board the allocation of £867,822 Littleport Market Town Fund towards the delivery of a new community building in Littleport, subject to the Combined Authority Investment Board satisfying itself as to the viability of the project. That would then it's uncomfortable because it places on the investment board the responsibility to do that due diligence, but frankly, we haven't had the opportunity to do that here, and someone needs to, and it enables it to go ahead within the envisaged timescale. Would that be seconded by someone as an option?
Is that, so. Yeah. Do you have a seconder for that amendment? Yeah, okay, councillor Whelan. I was just saying to Maggie, I'm actually a member, I'm the East Cambs rep on the investment board.
Can we have a?
So obviously speaking to the amendment now, I think we need advice from our officers, because I'm not convinced that that wording does the job, because members are requested to recommend the allocation to the CPCA. Does the CPCA require a decision from this authority in order to consider the case? That's the question.
To be honest, I don't know whether that's an actual governance requirement. We were asked to get support from the district council, so that's why we've gone through the process. I think the same process applied with Littleport, with eSpace as well, and the Market Town funding programme as a whole. So we've followed that process right the way through for each iteration of this, as we have done with SPF and Rural England funding.
So I think a simple solution then would be that it should read, members are requested to recommend the use of 867,822 blah, 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 to the CPCA Investment Board.
Are you suggesting that as as an amendment to councillor Dupre's amendment? Is that something you would accept? I'm trying to get, we can get an
Yeah,
agreement.
I'm genuinely trying
Yeah,
to get
I
to
know.
a resolution here. I don't understand why it's use rather than allocation, because that doesn't seem to me, I mean, if allocation is a good enough word to be in the original recommendation. Right, nobody's discussed why the word allocation is problematic, but I'm happy to hear that argument. I think, frankly, that amendment is the amendment to the amendment, if you like, achieves what I want this to do, which is to kind of flag it up to the board as it's putting it in their court. Frankly, on the basis of this piece of paper, I have rather more confidence. I saw a very, very complicated screen of how the Combined Authority Investment Board works, and I have rather more confidence in the Combined Authority Investment Board to do the due diligence than I do this body on the basis of this. So I think I would have to take it on trust that they were going to do the kind of job I hope they will do. And I think, frankly, handing it back to them, as it were, which is what the amended amendment would do, is probably the least bad option in this situation. So I think I'm happy, and I turn to my seconder, Mary, to see whether you're happy with the amendment to the amendment.
I think it was
Was it? Oh, I thought it was Councillor Wade. Are we happy with that amendment to the amendment? I can kind of live with that.
If you could read it out for
I'll just
what
read it
you
again.
think it
So
is for
members are
officers.
requested to recommend the use of 867,822 Littleport Market Town Fund towards the delivery of a new community building in Littleport to the CPCA Investment Board.
Okay, members, I know other, Councillor Miller and Councillor Hunt indicated they wanted to speak. Do you still wish to comment? Okay, I'll let Councillor Miller come in and then Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, I mean, we're heading in the right direction here, I think. So I'll just make a comment as, I guess, almost a point of principle sort of thing. Well, to address Councillor Wade's remark that, why is it on the agenda paper if it's just going to go through anyway? I just observed that it's not automatic that this side would have agreed with it, would have recommended that it be adopted. It's on the agenda because at a previous meeting, we as a committee asked for a proposal, but not necessarily this proposal. So it could well have been that we disagreed. As it is, we think it's a good idea.
Councillor Hunt, you wanted to?
I'm in a little bit of a muddled chair. I was hearing Councillor Dupre talking about spending money, and then I'm in the agenda, it's approving the allocation. Well, I think that's entirely two different things. To allocate funds and to approve the allocation isn't the same as spending, and spending was clearly a word that Councillor Dupre used, but it does appear that we're going down to a slightly different route from what's in the agenda, so I'm going to sit back and listen to what's agreed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. Do you want to come back in, Councillor Bailey?
So I really think we're getting to a point where we can wrap this up,
Well, that's-
frankly,
that-
Chairman, because, and I just want to reiterate here that, the due diligence requirement here is on the CPCA. It is down to the CPCA to satisfy itself. All we are doing is asking for the principle of, do we support here from the District Council this use of this money in this way? I very much do. I hope that we will send a united message that we do with the new agreed wording that I believe has been adopted by the proposer and seconder of the amendment. And I think it's important to understand that it is for the CPCA to carry out their due diligence and do that work. It is not for this organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Sally wants to come in on.
Just want to reassure members that we presented the information we had at the time. The work on the business case is actually still ongoing, so we wouldn't have been able to present that at this meeting anyway. because we had to get this report written to meet the concept. Because when Kieran presented the report to was it the concept group at the Combined Authority?
Yeah, we are on our fourth iteration of the concept paper as well. As a project, we're one of the early projects to go through the new quality assurance framework. And in a way, it's useful from a learning point of view, but I wouldn't like to say we're a guinea pig, but it feels a little bit like they're testing the process out and trying to get it right. So we have got an awful lot of information that we've had to gather. We've got a completed concept paper now, and we are working on a full business case, which will go to the investment board in the new year.
Okay, thank you for that, Kieran. So, Mary, Councillor Wade, sorry.
Just to clarify on that point, because one listening, and that could sound rather concerning. What you're saying is you don't have the completed concept in the way that it needs to be in order to satisfy the CPCA, but you do have a significant amount of prep work and market research, etc., that backs it up.
I'm probably slightly misled with the iterations. It's basically they want the concept paper written in a certain format rather than the information we're providing, and they've actually changed the form itself a couple of times from when we've presented information, so it better reflects the decision-making process that they want to apply to the project. So the information is the same. We're not altering any of the facts to do this.
Thank you, Kieran. I think I mean, all I'll say is certainly sitting on the investment committee as I am, it's a very new committee, and certainly I think we've had 2 meetings. It's they're really sort of getting themselves up to speed, so that I can understand where you're coming from, that they've changed some of the requirements because they're still learning as they're going along. I think it's fair comment. I think we'll move to the vote now, but could you read out for the benefit of all members and also for members of the public at home, watching at home, just to make sure that we get the actual wording of what we've actually finally agreed. And I've slightly bent the rules, but I think we got to a consensus where everybody was happy with. So if you can read it out, Jane, please.
Councillor, please correct me if I've not got it right. Members are requested to recommend the allocation of use of the allocation. Read it again. Yes.
Members are requested
Yeah.
to recommend the use of 867,822
Yeah.
Littleport Market Town Fund towards the delivery of a new community building in Littleport to the CPCA Investment
Yeah,
Board.
I've got that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Bailey. I'm hoping that we're going to get a unanimous on this, but members all in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. That's great. That's passed. And obviously, I think, thank you for the input of everybody on that item. I think there's things we learned, and I'm sure we can learn from that. And thank you, Kieran, for presenting the paper. And good luck with the information that you need to send to the Combined Authority. We're moving on then. Agenda item 8 is the local council tax reduction scheme update for 2025-26 and changes to council tax on long-term empty and second homes. Ian, do you want to introduce this paper?
Thank you, Chair. Committee is asked to approve the small change to the district local council tax reduction scheme, but retain the maximum relief at 91.5%. And further, committee is asked to approve the additional premiums on long-term empty properties and second homes, which are now allowed following national legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. We're being asked to consider and approve the annual review. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a?
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay, I now move to questions. Are there any questions of Ian on the paper? I'm seeing none. I'll then move. Is there anybody wants to debate this or make comments? Councillor du Preez.
Thank you, Chair. In a reprise of last year, I would like to move an amendment to the recommendation. It is fairly simple and I do have a written copy. It is to replace the words one change with two changes. Replace the words that being with those being, and then add at end, and that the maximum LCTRS award be 100% rather than 91.5%.
Could I have a copy of that?
We've got a copy of that.
I'm happy to pass it over to councillor Bailey, provided that it ends up back with the Democratic.
Could we
Services Manager.
could we quickly copy that so members of, and we'll sit,
I'm
if we
sorry, I
just
didn't bring
adjourn for a
multiple
couple of minutes whilst that's
It
being
is-
done.
It is entirely a reprise of the debate we had a year ago about whether the discount should be at maximum 100% rather than 91.5%.
I think it's useful that all members get sight of that, so we just adjourn for, well, hopefully a minute or two. Okay, members, we're back to those of members of the public watching live on YouTube. We are back live now. We had a small amendment, sorry, a small adjournment to circulate the amendment details to all members of the committee. Hopefully all members have got that in writing now and had a chance to read it. So Councillor Dupre has proposed that amendment. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Alison Whelan? So do you want to speak to the amendment then, Councillor Dupre?
I think I more or less did, Chair, and it's very simply, once again, a repeat of the discussion that we had a year ago.
Thank you. And Councillor Alison Whelan, did you want to reserve your right to speak or speak now? Okay, you'll reserve your right. In which case, we go to the debate. We're debating the amendment. Members, any speakers?
Well, as I think
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. As I think we've made clear from our side in previous years, you know, we think it's important that there is a principle here that people understand that there is council tax. They're getting a very, very generous discount, but they are asked to recognise and make payments towards the council tax bill. It's you know, it makes a very significant discount, you know, and not least, you know, I think it's an important contribution towards you know, the running of council services, both county council and district council and the other precepting authorities. So I just think we've discussed it at length many years in a row, I think, but I think it's an important principle.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Miller, then Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. In addition to what Councillor Bailey just said, I'd add that people don't value what they don't pay for. And so it's not a large amount of money. Okay, we're talking about people of very, very modest means. But there's still some value in demonstrating that there is value being had in paying the council tax. You are actually getting something for it.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I've got Councillor Goldsack and then Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of repeating what's been said, I think there should be a principle of paying something. I think 8.5% works. I don't think there's a need to change it. And I would remind everybody in the room and those watching, it is 8.5% of the council tax bill in its entirety. I believe I'm right in saying it's also 8.5% of the precept from the mayor. It's 8.5% of the combined, or sorry, of the county council's amount, etc. So we are paying for adult social care, we're paying for buses, we're paying for everything, and we've got to pay for that. And I think there's a point of principle here, a 91.5% discount for the circumstances as per the document is fair to leave it at 8.5. I also think, Chair, just to be absolutely clear, and with due respect to Councillor Dupre, by saying we're going to have the same debate as we did last year, doesn't tell anybody that's watching online what we're going to be able to debate. So there's different people in the room. So I think we did need some description or some proposal of the document. I think people have probably picked it up now, but I don't. We should never lose sight of why we're debating this and who we're debating it for. We're debating it for the ward members that we're elected for, and I think everybody recognises that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I've got Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it is fairly easy to look at 14,115.80 as being not a huge amount of money, and therefore we can sort of look at it and say, oh, well, there we go. But I think we've got to be realistic here, and it's a weird situation, which I believe we're in. If we give the discount on this, it costs the taxpayers of the county council £153,000. It costs from the combined authority, goodness knows how much. What about the fire brigade? What about the police? This could end up, I believe, with a bill of something, you know, approaching in excess of £250,000. So let's realise we're looking at big figures. And I'd just like people to bear that in mind when they make their decision.
Thank you, councillor Hunt. I've got councillor Wade.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. I agree that there's an interesting sort of extrapolation of costs we could be looking at. And I think I'd also be interested to know if there are any costs associated with trying to recover council tax that these people are unable to pay, the court costs associated with that, whether there are any impacts on our homelessness service of people who are unable to be paying that. So I think you're absolutely right. I think there are more than just the 14,000 that are in here. And I think it would be useful to have that information in the round when we have a look at this, rather than just looking at it as a figure that's lost or not to the to the various councils.
Thank you, councillor Wade. I'm seeing no other people requesting to speak, in which case I'll go to the seconder, councillor Alison Whelan.
Thank you, Chair. It's always quite interesting. I've heard this idea that people should be, should at least contribute something. I've heard it from members on the other side, but also colleagues of theirs from across the country for many years. The idea that somehow, we've got to make people pay, we've got to make them pay. Interesting earlier debate where we're talking about the deprivation levels in certain parts of the district. And yet we then say these people are suffering, so let's just leave them to suffer a little bit more. It's really sad because the amount of money we're talking about is tiny for most of us in this room, I would guess. I don't know because I don't know your circumstances, but I'm guessing that most of us could swallow that without too much of a worry. But for some of those people out there, it really is the difference between whether they can afford the extortionate prices for heating their houses at the moment, the ridiculously increased price of food that they're trying to survive on. If we can do a little bit to help them, then surely we should. Think about those and stop thinking about, oh, we've got to make people pay. Please just support this. Support the most deprived people just this once.
Thank you, councillor Whelan. That ends all of the speakers. As the proposer of the main motion, I don't intend to say anything. I think everything's been said, so I'll move to the vote. So all of those who are in favour of the amendment, if they can please show. And all of those who are against. Amendment's lost, yes. The amendment's lost 6 votes to 5. So moving on to the main motion, as I say, I don't intend to say any, as a proposer, any additional things. And you'll reserve your right to speak, councillor Bondon. Any speakers on the main motion? I'm seeing none, in which, councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I will briefly, because I do just want to take now we're on to the substantive motion, take the opportunity to just address a couple of things that were said in the last debate. I would remind councillor Whelan, Chair, that this council does work significantly hard to keep the council cost of council tax as low as possible. We've frozen our council tax for 11 years in a row, so that has not increased the burden on those who are least well off, unlike the county council, which has taken the opportunity to increase its council tax by the maximum every single year under the current administration. And they've always put forward proposals to increase it prior to them being in charge at the county council. So it's not fair to say that this council doesn't do what it can to keep council tax low. We've got the only record in the entire country of a council that's frozen its council tax at a low level for 11 years, and I'm proud of that record. And that helps everybody, not just those that are the least well off, because there are plenty of people who are really struggling to pay council tax full stop, who don't benefit from this discount as well. and that is in no small order because of the massive increases that other authorities keep putting on the precept, the mayoral tax, the county council's increases. There is also, of course, significant other support for people who are the least well off from this organisation and impacted, you know, by increasing cost of living and increasing council tax bills from other authorities. And, you know, the housing and community safety team is available to help those people and support them. There are other funds, you know, the option to take various benefits that can be taken up, you know, and exceptional hardship payments, etc. So there is other support available. So this council is doing more than other authorities to try and support all of our residents in the district. And in relation to the other two items in this paper, which is about the premiums on long-term empty properties and second homes. You know, I think the reasons behind this are the right reasons, and I rather suspect that I hope that this element of the paper will get universal support. And I think you know, they're the right driving reasons behind this that we should do. But we're not actually making this change right now. What we're doing is we're taking the option to do it, and we do still have the option if something unexpected came along to not do this. But if we want to be able to implement it from 2026, we have to do it now. It's the point. I'm trying to not very elegantly say. That's the point I wanted to make. And I think it's the right thing to do. I still think it's quite regrettable that housing association homes, and we've seen so many empty properties for some time from housing associations across our district, are not subjected to having to pay council tax. I think it would sharpen the minds to get those empty properties back into use, frankly. And it's, to me, seems an anomaly in the legislation that they get not to pay. Having said that, I do want to support Sanctuary in particular, because they have been turning around their empty properties and getting significant numbers back into use now, which is really, really good and heartening to see. But I do think it's something government should look at, because I think it's wrong, frankly.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Trapp.
Yeah, it's to do with the exemptions for dwellings being actively being marketed for sale. I'm sort of going to extend this up to 24 months. Why should dwellings going up for sale should be exempted from council tax? I'm not sure. I just can't see it. For instance, one could actually be saying, well, let's put it on the market at an extremely high price. No one's going to buy it, but I'll get exempt from council tax for 2 years, and then you take it off. What page? 59.
Bullet point 4.9 for
4.9.
Yeah.
You could have it on the market for 2 years, take it off again for a month, pay the council tax, and back again. I'm a benefiter of the single person council tax, the relief on the single person having council tax. I actually don't believe in that. I think what? I actually think every property, it might be more incentive for me to sell it if I have to pay full council tax and have someone else living in a big house. So I think actually each property should be taxed as council tax regardless of whether it's being for sale or empty or anything else. I know this is adding things on, but I'm just putting that forward. And probably not to the benefit of everyone, but I do think that it will clear up tax or collection of tax quite happily by doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Members, any other? Councillor Alison Whelan.
Yes, Chair, just one point, just wondering when we come to the vote, if we could actually vote on point 1, point 2 separately rather than taking them as combined items, please.
I'm happy to take that like that. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. If I recall, if I read this correctly, the exemption for up to 24 months applies to all such properties, there isn't a distinction between, why a property is up for sale. That is to say that the probate cases are not treated separately, are they? And if that's the case, then it's not the case. No, okay. In any event, the other point I wanted to make was empty properties are not consuming resources, are not being used. There are no public services being used by a property that is empty. So there seems to be a reasonable case to exempt for a reasonable period of time properties in that situation. Though I do take Councillor Trapp's point that it could be abused. It doesn't seem very likely, but it's possible it could.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Members, any other? You want to come back
Can I-
in, Councillor Trapp?
Can I come back to that?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Councillor Miller, yes, it probably isn't used, but there may be bin lorries still going out, regardless of whether the property is used or not. Lighting is there, all sorts of services are being provided anyway. And I mean, what I would say is actually, if it's something for sale, it should be perhaps the council tax could be deferred until the sale comes through. Same with probate, it could be deferred until the probate comes through, until the money. That would be my point, to actually say, right, you're just getting taxed because you have a dwelling, full stop.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. I'm seeing nobody else, in which case I'll go to the seconder of the main of the. Did you want to make any comments, Councillor Bovingdon?
Right, just like to ask that question again. What was the reason to extend for up to 24 months on the long-term empty and second homes?
Is that something you can answer, Ian? Or?
I mean, I think that's something we have at the moment in particularly very relevant for if somebody inherits a home after probate and things like that, to give them opportunity to sell the house when there's obviously no intention of moving into it. Like that.
So you're allowing effectively 12 months for probate and then potentially another 12 months, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, from the chair, before we go to the vote, as was said earlier, this is we've got to make this decision about the 100% premiums before the 31st of March next year, but it doesn't come into play until the 1st of April 2026. So, and we can actually change it on the 31st of March 2026 to actually go against it. That's the legislation. So, and this will come back to us next year. And I think maybe certainly before next year, I take on board what Councillor Trapp's saying about the 2 years, and we'll certainly have a look at that and see what maybe flesh it, maybe make it a bit more specific, taking your point, but it's a point well made, I think. But in saying that, can I move to the vote? I'm assuming everybody's, we're taking them separately. Sorry, Councillor Whelan. So if we're going to take it is on 2.1 on page 55. Number 1, the annual review of the LCTRS scheme for the 2025-26 year, making one change to the scheme, that being that DWP passported benefit status for LCTRS assessments will be disregarded where the local authority is satisfied that the LTRS assessment is incorrect because of the information obtained by the local authority fraud investigation team. Can those members who are in favour of that please show now? And those against? And those abstaining?
I meant to vote for the long-term
That's, okay. Yeah. And then item 2 is the changes in council tax premiums on long-term empty properties and second homes as detailed in section 4.5 to 4.7, and the exemptions to these premiums as detailed in sections 4.8 and 4.9. Could those members who are in favour of that please show? Yeah. I think that's unanimous. Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to item 9, which is the finance report, which is, if I can hand over to Ian Smith to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Committee is asked to note the budget monitoring position for the half year and the forecast revenue underspend of £477,000. The detailed reasons behind which are in the report. Committee is also asked to note the underspend on capital and the reasons behind that relate to slippage on schemes which will require the funding to be carried forward into future years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. This paper is purely for noting, but are there any questions of Ian? I'm seeing none, in which case are there any comments members wish to make? Councillor Hunt.
I could just whisper it to him, but I'd just like to say thank you to Ian. I think he's done a stunning job. And I think underspend is something we should all be keen and appreciative of when there's so many local authorities just grossly overspending, going broke and having to cost the national taxpayer more money. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I've got Councillor Christine Whelan.
Yeah, sorry, I should have asked the question about the parking of the vehicles. You said about the commuter car park being down. A comment really is the fact that a lot of the time the parking machines are not working when you go to use the commuter car parks. So there are no. Often there's no way of actually buying tickets. Has that had an impact on the income of that being down?
Okay, thank you for that. That's on page 64, the parking of vehicles, £10,000. Okay. Is there any comment you've got on that, Ian?
I don't know that level of detail, but I can research it.
If you could take that away, I think it's a valid question. Yeah, if you could take that away and give us some. I've got Councillor Trapp.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I went up to Leeds to see my son and just had to do it by phone rather than automatically paying automatically. Like I do, which I do at Cambridge North. That is wonderful. You pay automatically. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Councillor Trapp. I mean, this is not a scam special, but certainly I've been caught at a railway station trying to get the app to pay by phone, and I got the wrong one, and I ended up where my credit card company would then rang me to say somebody was trying to take £60 a month out of my account. So it is easily done. So I personally am not a great fan of those. Members, any other questions? Any comments? No. In which case we are asked to note the report, and thank you to Ian for the work on that. We move on to item 10, and that's back to Ian again, which is the Treasury Operations Mid-Year Review for 2024-25.
Thank you, Chair. Committee is asked to recommend to full council the approval of the report. The council continues to hold high cash balances which are being invested in line with the approved Treasury strategy. No external borrowing is forecast in this or the next financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. We're being asked to recommend to full council the mid-review as noted, so I'm happy to propose that from the chair.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Are there any questions of Ian on the actual report? No. Are there any comments members wish to make? No, in which case, members, I'm sensing by that we've got unanimity of the vote. So is that true? I'm seeing no dissension, so that's passed unanimously. Thank you, members. Item 11 is the assets update, and Spencer Clark is with us to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick update, leading on from the report that you've all had a chance to see. So the depot parking area that we're now working on as part of the depot improvements, all the quotes have now been received and we've identified the contractor that we want to use. And the next step now is to arrange a site meeting with that contractor on site to work out how we carry out the works with the absolute minimal disruption to services and to staff. One quick item that's not in the report, but I thought it might be quite nice to update you. We now have 3 new water drinking fountains installed at our public toilets within Ely. So that's Ship Lane, Cloisters and Barton Road. One thing I have to admit that I have failed to deliver on, and that is the Newnham Street car park resurfacing. I was hoping to get that done in this month, but we just didn't quite get it turned around in time. So I'm going to hold fire until the early part of the new year so we don't disrupt the Christmas pick up with all the extra shopping and that around this sort of coming up time. And I think that concludes my brief update, but happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Spencer. Member, I've got Councillor Trapp and then Councillor Wade.
Yes. The shower, it says complete, but I think it isn't complete. It's still not in use.
I signed it off today. We had some teething issues, and it was actually signed off today. Bonds. I haven't actually tried it, but it's.
Thank you very much. I didn't notice it. I didn't come through that way. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wade.
I just wondered when the refurbishment of the cloisters might commence, because it's something I get a few questions about. So the refurbishment of the public conveniences, the cloisters.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I have put that on hold. We've had quite a few issues with access to the cloisters with all the refurbishment work on
With the scaffolding.
on scaffolding and that. And I just thought having more works going on in that area, we just probably push the public over the limit of what they can cope with. So.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dupre, then Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chair. A comment has also already been made about payment machines at car parks. I know when I went to park last there that I was told when I couldn't pay there that by another person trying to park that they had been out of action for some time. I don't know whether they are repaired yet. And I think there is a valid question that has been asked about whether that is costing us money. Being a good citizen, I wrestled through about 4 different methods to pay my money, and I was still trying to pay my money as I boarded the train. But obviously people using those machines and parking in that location are, for the most part, trying to get a train and are under pressure of time and are wanting to be able to complete their transaction quickly. I have to say that the the public car park machines in Huntingdonshire that I have used in various locations have been excellent. They are easy to use with the card. They have 2 different options, whether you want to just pay some money and hope that you stay within the time that you've bought, or tap in and then tap out when you've finished, and it just calculates it for you. I have found 2 occasions over many years when they haven't worked, but generally they're working, and generally they work fabulously. And I would really like us to find some easier way to enable people to pay at our paid for car parks. Wonder if that's a possibility.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, but please, if I may, I totally agree with everyone about the machines have been adapted since they've been put in new. They were solar to start with. We have managed to get 2 onto electric. We never had card paid to start with on the machines, and that's been added to. I think they are a bane of my life at the moment, and they have been for quite a while. It's something that we keep working on, and we hopefully will get them right one day. But at the moment, even the change in the weather, the ticket machine's now gone damp, and the spools inside it. It's just one thing after another. You know, the batteries have failed, and I can make loads of excuses, which I shouldn't do. But we need to get it right. Totally agree.
But I think it's something, yes, we need to get right. And I've certainly used the Huntingdonshire machines and they've been quite good. I use it. I use the Ringo app quite a lot as well. I'm sure other apps are available. But I find that incredibly quick, incredibly useful because I've paid for my parking within seconds. But anyway, yeah.
Further on the digression, don't fall foul of Huntingdon. They're also extremely quick at coming after you for any money that you might not have paid.
Thought it was our duty to encourage people to be paying money to the public purse on the basis of the previous.
Yeah, it was the Ringo app, Bob, and I'll talk to you offline. You mentioned, which I was pleased to hear, that the provision of clean drinking fountains in the public conveniences. Two follow-ups to that, really. One is that needs comms, that needs people to know that they're there, because hydration is an issue. Even if you can go there and fill up your water bottles or something like that, I think would be a commendable thing. And is there any plans for that to be spread across the district to other WCs?
It's certainly a test. These are test locations to see if that's where they're in suitable places, and we'll certainly be looking at if there's other locations to put them out.
Thank you, member. Councillor Hunt, as the asset champion, is there anything you want to add to the?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. In which case we're being asked to note the report. Thank you, Spencer, and thank you for your time. Item 12 is the annual infrastructure funding statement, and if I can ask Sally to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members are requested to note this report, which details the developer contributions received by the council during the last financial year. Just over £3.9 million of SIL and just under £750,000 in Section 106 funding has been collected by the council during the last financial year, and the report details expenditure of this. In addition to the projects on our SIL infrastructure list that have received SIL funding, over £959,000 was passed to parish councils in meaningful proportion payments, which is the parish element of SIL. The breakdown of this can be found on page 98 of the agenda. The table on pages 97 and 98 of the agenda then detail all the SIL expenditure, which also details the meaningful proportion amounts again. I think members sort of picked that up last time, that there was a bit of duplication in the report. We've changed the report from last year to identify the parish in the spend description so you can see where the figures align. Members are requested to note the report, which will be published on the council's website.
Thank you, Sally. Members, as we say, we're being asked to note the report. Certainly, one thing changed, as Sally's just introduced, pages 97 and 98. I remember from last year, it didn't have the spend description, so we didn't know where it related to. And as I understand it, this format is laid down by government. So I think there were comments last year from members about the lack of ease of reading it, but unfortunately we're stuck with this presentation. So I'm trying to preempt a debate around the presentation because we basically have little choice. But any questions? No. Any comments then? Councillor Goldsack.
Just a quick comment. It's one I made, I think, at full council. I reiterate here. What a wonderful example I saw when I was at the opening of the new recreation facility in Hadnam, and how hard that community had worked for it and come together. And to me, that's exactly what SIL is there for. And it was a wonderful to be part of watching the community all celebrate together the outcome and delivery of a new sports field. So I was very pleased to see that. So I'm seeing it in writing in here and seeing the amounts of value. It's a sense of pride that that's exactly what we should be doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing no other comments, in which case we're being requested to note the statement. So thank you for that. Item 13 is the whistleblowing policy. So if I can hand over to Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't really want to rehearse the report, but obviously for the purposes of the live stream, I just want to go through the background. Members will recall that I presented the whistleblowing policy to the committee in March 2024, and there was a resolution that was approved. but also I was requested to undertake an investigation into the possible facilitation of an assessment of the policy by the independent charity Protect, and to report on the outcome to the June meeting. I did approach Protect, as detailed in the report, to inquire what services they offer and which services would actually be more suitable for this council. I then presented a verbal report to the June committee that the recommendation had been that the scanner procedure was more suitable, given that the council has less than 250 employees. And the purpose of the scanner is to provide small organisations with a convenient and efficient way to assess their whistleblowing culture and ensure they were doing enough to support whistleblowing. At the time of the verbal report, we paid the fee and received the link, but I hadn't had a chance to complete the scanner procedure. And I confirmed that a report would be brought to a later committee. I then carried out the scanner procedure, and the council scored a total of 81%. And the purpose really of the scanner was to identify any areas of improvement across the areas of governance, engagement and operations that aligns with best practices and the EU whistleblowing directive. Once the scan had been completed and the results received, it was felt that without asking or seeking a proper review of the council's whistleblowing policy by Protect, the results of the scanner could be viewed as meaningless without that. So therefore, I requested them to carry out a review so that both the scanner results and the outcome of the review could be considered together by members. So the review has been received, and we've had several key recommendations for revisions to the council's whistleblowing policy, which I've appended to the report at Appendix 4. I've also appended the result of the scanner report and also the key recommendations. I've also provided a clean copy of the revised whistleblowing policy for members to consider. And therefore, the recommendation is that members are requested to approve the revised whistleblowing policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Can I say how great it is? We've got all the track changes, but we've also got the clean copy as well. So that's very useful for members, hopefully, that's been able to follow that. We are being asked, sorry, go back to my, we are being asked to approve the revised whistleblowing policy, and I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Okay.
That we proposed going to the organisation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dupre. But thank you, Maggie, for the work on this. Members, are there any questions? Councillor Alison Whelan.
Just to really follow up on exactly what you've already said, Chair, the use of the track changes in this way is really helpful. There are some very good features now available within commercial products, which enable you to compare the original document you start with and the final document, which allows you to give this kind of thing. So it'd be really good to have, where we're updating any policies, to be able to do that. Makes it so much easier to see what we're actually changing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You've set yourself a high bar now, Maggie. Members, any other questions or comments? Councillor Bailey.
I just wanted to say thank you, because obviously this has been a very comprehensive, piece of work, and you hope that you don't need it, but when you do need it, it needs to be good. And so thank you very much for what looks like a really comprehensive end document, and more work to do, and we know what we're doing, so it's really good. Thank you.
I forgot to add, which I should have said. One of the things was flagging up training. Now, I've detailed there at 3.7, which I apologise to the members that I omitted, that I propose to work with HR now to roll out some training for service leads in the next few months on whistleblowing. Thank you.
Thank you for that addition. That's useful. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how very much I particularly valued that input into this piece of work, because the feedback from Protect rightly made the point of how important managers are as the first point of contact in many cases in whistleblowing, and how they respond is critical. So I think the training that's being proposed is absolutely right, and I think that will be a good piece of work to embed what is, I think, now a very good policy.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dupre. Members, I'm seeing no other wish to speak. I'm guessing we've got unanimity. I'm struggling on that word. Everybody's in favour of that. Can I?
Yes.
And I'm seeing no dissension. Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Maggie, for the working on that. Item 14 is the agenda plan, and we've got the next meeting is the 30th of January, and that's going to be, obviously we've got the revenue budget will be coming to that meeting, and there's the bereavement centre update. So, and then obviously the 27th of March. Any comments on the agenda plan or any additions you wish to make? Sorry, we've got one addition.
One addition for January is a constitutional update regarding the new contract regulations.
Because I think that becomes, is it 1st of February 2025? That becomes operative, doesn't it? Ian?
Yeah, I mean, it also need to be approved by full council, but the dates don't quite work. It comes into effect on the 24th of February, and the full council will be 25th of February, but I'm sure we'll make that work somehow.
So that contract requirement will come to this committee, and then we have to recommend it or not to full council. That's to comply with legislation that's changing. I'm seeing no other comments on this. So we have noted the agenda plan, and we now move to the exclusion. And I'd like to thank, well, no, we'll have the vote first. Exclusion of the public, including representatives of the press, that the press and public be excluded during the consideration of the remaining items, because it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that if members of the public were present during the items, there will be disclosure to them of exempt information of categories 1 and 3 of Part 1, Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Is everybody in favour of that? Thank you. In which case, we now close the live stream of the meeting, and I'd like to thank all those members of the public and press watching online, and hopefully you enjoyed the meeting and have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.